may not consider yourself one for conspiracy theory. You easily tackle misinformation online, and extremism is something you only hear about on the news. But the impact of these developments is much closer than you think. Social media algorithms, which most of us use on a daily basis, are designed to create revenue. Given that heightened emotions on social media platforms often lead to increased engagement and subsequently more revenue, they wield significant influence over what we encounter. This growing phenomenon is having a direct impact on the perceptions of democratic institutions and trust in science. At worst, it has the ability to attempt to overthrow or disrupt democratically elected governments. Extreme political narratives have been rising across Europe, and these narratives influence mainstream political discourses and policies. It's about you, me, and the lives we lead. As a generation born in a time before the internet, there was a growing concern for those in the middle age. Not being digital natives, this group often still use traditional routes to gain information, such as print media, TV, and radio, but at the same time are engaging in online media. Without the tools to navigate, they rely on their perception of credible sources, making them easy targets for extremist narratives and misinformation through social media. This group of middle-aged adults between the ages of 45 and 65 is under-researched, but the impact of them being drawn into extremist content may have significant consequences on political discourse, democratic processes, and institutions, as they form a large group of people who may also be in decision-making positions, such as managers and policymakers, therefore have a direct influence on those who live in democracies like you and me. In this podcast, we will talk with experts in the field of research surrounding conspiracy theories and misinformation, joining both strength and knowledge in the newly founded Smidge project. Research centers, universities, and NGOs from all over Europe will shine their light on new research findings and counter-narratives, education, and also training resources that are being developed to address fake news and misinformation. Dear all, a very warm welcome to the first episode of the SmidgeCast. My name is Ella Putz. I'm the moderator of this podcast, and as said in the introduction of this episode, I will talk with experts about this project, which is a project that brings researchers from all over Europe together to find a counter-narrative in extremist messaging on social media.
Joining us online from Milan is Giovanni Ziccardi from the University of Milan. Giovanni, good evening.
Good evening.
It's good to have you here as a first guest. And just before we start diving into this in-depth research part of the project, which you are part of and we will talk about for a significant part of this episode as well, could you just give us a short introduction about yourself and describe your role in the Smidge research project at Milan University?
Sure. Thank you very much, Ella. And it's really an honor for me to discuss with you about this topic. Well, I am a university professor of legal informatics at the University of Milan in the Faculty of Law. And before these 22 years at the University of Milan, I spent 7 years at the University of Bologna, where I got a PhD in computer crimes. I am a criminal lawyer. I am the director of a research center, the Information Society Law Center, and I am also on the University Ethical Board and in the Cybersecurity Committee. I have written a lot about hate, including a book on political hatred, fake news in elections, and fraud and crimes. In Smidge, well, we are, so to speak, the jurists of the group. We are preparing a review of the most relevant academic works and worldwide legislation on conspiracy theories, disinformation, and misinformation. We are doing this activity to give the other partners a solid academic background on which to work in their fundamental tasks of monitoring and analyzing content, creating educational materials and toolkits, and counter-narrative products. And we are also developing platforms and policies to influence those in government in the proper handling of this very sensitive issue. We are focusing particularly on the most recent years, the years of Cambridge Analytica and of the profiling of people, enabling the so-called targeted fake news. But we are also focusing on COVID and its consequences, including informational ones, also on the attack on Capitol Hill, on war, and the economic crisis. And I think that these are all key factors in conditioning the development of these issues and are all aspects that make this project so timely and so necessary.
That's a great answer. You already mentioned this project is timely and necessary. But what exactly is this research project that makes it so much needed right now? Why is this project so much needed right now?
In my opinion, the need for such a project is related to the fact of the use of disinformation over the past decade as a real weapon. Disinformation has become for years a weapon to try to bring chaos and political changes without requiring physical involvement of armies and of nations. And there is more the possibility of tailoring information warfare to the profiled characteristics of citizens, targeting and affecting in that way specific groups, as, for example, it usually happens with elections. And this is why the Smidge project is dividing possible victims into groups according to the information being spread. And we are also mapping the most common conspiracy theories. I think that the use of war through disinformation is incredibly attractive. It is easy to conduct, it is relatively cheap, and most importantly, it's very easy to plausibly deny. And this is why one of the most serious threats also to middle-aged adults in recent years is related to the intentional dissemination of false or misleading news to influence public opinion or also to achieve other specific goals.
Could you tell us a bit more about the significance of focusing on the middle-aged demographics and on this group in particular?
Yes, the focus on the middle age, that I think it was the really winning part of this project and the really great idea. It comes from the fact that many of these people are in a position of power. And we have, and not only Europe, but we have a very elderly political class. So most of the position of power, with also the related decision-making abilities, are occupied by people who can be very vulnerable to these issues because they apply what they believe to the governance of society. So we think that this is a very important part of our society that must be addressed in this way.
You mentioned in your previous answers the spread of fake news, conspiracies around COVID, the attack on the Capitol in the US as well. How does this project plan to address the impact of these news events, the spread of conspiracy theories and online extremism? It seems to me like it's such a big challenge.
Yes, you are right. I think that society is the key word of our project, is one of the key words of our project. Society today is conditioned by education, by culture, by maturity. And in my opinion, education in this context is really crucial. And keeping people in position of power with reading and critical thinking skills can help them to determine the truthfulness of information. And considering that misinformation moves easily and crosswise between online and offline context, it becomes important to develop critical thinking skills in these people, even in non-digital domains. And then I am convinced that collective action is needed to protect all the citizens. And so policymakers and civil society organizations and technology companies and practitioners and parents and teachers should collaborate more actively, in my opinion, to protect children from the harms of misinformation. Efforts to slow the spread of misinformation are often not coordinated in any way among all these actors. And the trust in society is achieved if the policy world develops a regulation based on people's rights regarding disinformation. And so this regulation, in my opinion, should focus on procedures for content classification and to guarantee transparency and accountability, and also to try to seek a constant balance between rights-based online protection and also the very important protection of freedom of expression. And finally, and this is one of the main purposes of our project, civil society and academia should provide guidance for policy action on disinformation. And so civil society, universities, international organizations must conduct a very important research on the impact of disinformation on persons, on natural persons, and the effectiveness of countermeasures, so that the results can assist policy responses and can help to draw a better world and a better society.
Yeah, because creating a better world and creating a better society is a very strong and wonderful ambition on its own. However, we talked about the global pandemic, the outcome of the Capitol attack in the US. And given that these events have not taken place such a long time ago, can you share insights into the potential impact of online extremism on societal trust, on the effect of these events on societal trust?
Yes, it's very interesting, this point, because we started to understand first what is disinformation and misinformation and the dissemination of these contents, because it's very important, in my opinion, to start with a sort of academic approach and scientific approach. And in my opinion, from the academia, we can bring the idea of education. Because, of course, our project is a very complex project. We've got law, we've got technologies, but society is today conditioned by education, by culture, by maturity also. And so we need really to help citizens and to help society to pay more attention. But these are very complex times, in my opinion, to gain more attention, because the pandemic, the economic crisis, the COVID, and the war. And so it's very difficult. So probably to gain trust in society is one of the most complex things. And the University of Milan is planning, for example, at the end of the project, to propose policies and rules regarding and guidelines regarding also the political activity. And I think that this could be the best way to try to put also in our society a sort of reference to how to work well, also for the political class.
Could you share a little bit more about the rules and guidelines that you were talking about?
Yes, of course. Rules and guidelines, in my opinion, are strictly related to also the idea of misinformation, and also the idea of disinformation, and we are preparing some rules to be disseminated, not only related to middle-aged person, but in every venue and in every part of the society. These rules are very simple, in my opinion, but it's very difficult to apply them all. The first one, of course, is the need to always verify the source of information and to be wary of websites and content of uncertain provenance. Then we need to compare multiple heterogeneous sources that are typical of the digital society of today. And we have to compare these sources to check the reliability of information. And we have to understand whether a piece of news has been, for example, confirmed by several sources, or, for example, it has only been spread by one source, and moreover, this source is unreliable. It's also very important to pay attention to headlines. This is a thing that we also tell in schools when we talk with the very young children. It's very important today to pay attention to headlines and always to read the full article from beginning to end, and not to rely on the headline alone, because often this title and the title of an article is composed to attract attention and can be misleading compared to the actual content of the article. It's very important also a verification of the publication date of the article, to avoid to spread outdated information, and or to share information that is not being verified or that's really too old, or to put old information in a new context. And finally, in my opinion, it's very important to pay attention to emotions and to emotional reaction, because fake news and disinformation are thought to generate anger, fear, indignation. And so it's very easy to make false or misleading information in the society using the emotion of the listener or of someone who is reading some news.
Now, these are all very practical tips, tips that are also important for the non-experts that are listening to the podcast, for people that read the news also on a daily basis. But I'd like to get back to the more academic part, because the Smidge project is a general but yet academic project. Is there a shared or common definition of misinformation when you start the research, or are there still terms that change over time because of the societal standards and these rapidly changing developments in terms of misinformation?
This is a very important point, in my opinion, because there are some traditional definitions, for example, with the distinction between disinformation and misinformation. But we really had, it was very difficult for us to start with the initial definition that is the most important academic approach. And an initial definition that, in my opinion, could be fine is disinformation as the intentional dissemination of inaccurate or distorted news or information for the purpose of influencing someone's action and choices. But there is also a very fine line, a fine borderline, concerning all the cases where there is a lack or scarcity of reliable information. Just imagine, for example, events that are happening around the world and very far from our culture also. And so on a given topic, probably we can also have disinformation related about facts and events where we are not informed, and we need more reliable information. So the misinformation, conspiracy theories, and disinformation must be mapped, in my opinion, because it's very important with in academic work and in an important project like this one to spot the right definitions.
Is there a definition yet?
With our partners, we started to do a map of all the conspiracy theories, fake news, and disinformation approaches, and the map is growing because there are a lot of also new trends. I would love to separate conspiracy theories that are constants, also in history, and others that are related to social changes and more related to modern life. For example, among the constants, we could include, for example, all the conspiracy theories related to anti-Semitism, the domination of Jews in the financial market, or some other secret powers dominating the world, or conspiracy theories related to the Holocaust, for example, but also the conspiracy theories that are related to aliens, that it's a topic that recently become highly trendy, in my opinion. Among the new ones are, for example, conspiracy theories related to elections, like, for example, the Pizzagate, or also the motivation and the exchange of opinion between the attackers on Capitol Hill and similar. And then we've got some more wide issues related to specific topics like the Illuminati, the chemical trials, the 5G, all the conspiracy theories related also to COVID, to 9/11. So we are trying to draw a map, and till today we have got around 25 different conspiracy theories in Europe, but probably it will grow the number because each day we've got new theories.
Yes, exactly. I just have one more follow-up question. In your first year of this operation, you already found 25 of these. That's quite a lot, I would say. And yeah, like you said, it will increase as well. While analyzing this information or misinformation overview, how do these disinformation types manifest themselves?
We started to analyze the 10 types of disinformation, misinformation, and conspiracy theories related also to the process of creating these contents. The first category is fabricated content, and this refers clearly to completely false content. Then we've got manipulated content, and this is information or real images that have been altered or distorted. And today it's very easy also with deepfake, artificial intelligence, memes. Just think about, for example, a sensational headline or a clickbait content that is really connected to another type of content. Then we've got fake content, where the content is created starting from authentic sources, using, for example, the logo or the letterhead of an authority and or a well-known institution, and is spread in that way. Then we've got misleading content. Misleading content is, for example, personal comments or opinions that are presented as facts, also in important magazines. Then we've got false context. This is very interesting. You've got a content that is accurate, but is combined with false information if you pay attention to the context in which it is presented. For example, the title of an article is not reflecting the content. Then we've got the distorted use of parody, for example, humor and satire also. In this case, false humorous remarks that are passed off as true. And in these cases, perhaps there is not the direct intent to harm someone, but of course a citizen and readers can still be misled. Then you've got false links. That is very typical of the digital society. Titles, images, or captions that do not recall the real content. Then advertising contents. In this case, we've got sponsored content that is disguised as objective and neutral editorial product, but it's not. And the last two are the pure propaganda, a content designed to feed specific ideas and values that are often very hot and very divisive also. And then there are a lot of errors contained also in official documents that can for sure contribute to this fake news world and these problems we are facing with in our project.
This project is facing a lot of different information to be tackled. So much already we talked about and so much more to be discussed. Giovanni, thank you for sharing your answers and good luck with your research in the Smidge project. We will be back with a new episode featuring Dr. Sarah Wilford from De Montfort University in 2 months. I am Ella Buck. This is a SmidgeCast, and if you want to learn more about Smidge and our work, visit smidgeproject.eu or connect with us on X at the Smidge Project. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, please consider sharing it to support our mission. Thank you for listening.